spiritual knowledge. Vedas also had knowledge of medicine like Ayurveda. Vedas had knowledge of archery and weapons like Dhanurveda. Vedas were teaching us economics and politics like Arthashastra. Vedas were teaching us about town planning and architecture like Vastu Shastra. So all of these branches emerged from that root called the Vedas. So we're going to see the application of some of that and how that knowledge was so rich and so diverse that factored not just spiritual aspect of life but also material aspect, economics, all of those aspects. So that's one thing we saw last time. We also saw in the last class how where Ramayana fits in this entire Vedic literature. We covered, there are the four Vedas, the Vedas are organized into 4 parts, but Ramayana comes under a category called, anyone remember? What did we call that category? Itihasa. Ramayana comes under a category called Itihasa, which literally the word means Itihasa, thus it happened. So it is recounting the story as it was taking place. So in that context, Ramayana and Mahabharata, these 2 texts are recounting and telling us a story. So they are not fiction, they are not mythology. There is another section called Puranas which has some creative license, but Ramayana and Mahabharata were recounting incidents as they took place thousands of years ago, with the goal that when we come, us and future generations, don't have to reinvent the wheel, we can learn and hopefully we have a role model. So we learned about where Ramayana fits in that scheme of things. We then learned the story of the Rishi who has written this text, who was earlier a dacoit, and how the power of Ramanama transformed a person's life. So it doesn't matter what our past is, what we have done, not done, but the point is what do we do from here on. Now, very often people say, I'm already 80, 85 years old, what's the point of doing it now? So when we are usually in our 20s and 30s, we say, when we retire, I'll have a lot of time for Ramayana and all these things. So thank you, please do this. Store it on YouTube, I will come and watch. But when we get to 60, 70, we are like, either we cannot hear or we cannot see and all other problems. Then we say, anyway, it's now too late. Next attempt, thank God for Hinduism, we say reincarnation. So the next time again I will come, I will start fresh. Now our body may be 40, 50, 80 years old. How old is our mind? How old is our mind?
Infinite?
Possibly. Right? So we don't know the age of our mind, and a lot of what we are doing right now is actually for purifying our mind. So technically then it is never too late to start, because from the mind's perspective the clock is ticking. So even if we start something now, even if we are half asleep, we catch something, that's also okay, because like a systematic investment plan, it keeps adding up and it goes somewhere hopefully in the future. So if they say the mind is also beginning less, the good news is it is not endless. So we can actually put a stop to it. So we learned how Itihasa in the form of stories gives us the same knowledge that the Vedas are talking about, and we concluded with the story of Valmiki. So that's broadly where we kind of finished last time, and we then looked at the significance of Ramayana. We looked at the different Ramayana. Valmiki is what we are learning now is the original one. There are so many different adaptations, and that does not mean one is better than the other or anything. It just means different poets, different sages have been inspired in different ways with that same story, with that same idol, that same text, and for different audiences at different stages of life, those stories have been adapted in slightly different ways, but the essence is still very much the same. So that's where we stopped. Today we are going to start with the story of how Valmiki Ramayana starts, and that is slightly different to some of the other texts. So normally we will not do a lot of verses here, but I think because we are learning it as a text, and while the story is important, there is also some value in knowing a few of the shlokas. So I'm going to say a few shlokas. If you can recite, repeat after me, good. If you cannot, that's okay, just listen. Yeah? So the first Valmiki Ramayana has how many verses? Anyone remembers? 24,000 verses. Yeah, 24,000 verses in the whole of Valmiki Ramayana, and apparently it was written in a matter of a few hours. I don't know how fast they wrote, but clearly almost like ChatGPT. We ask a question fast, you get the answer. Maybe at that time they also had something similar. Clearly written very fast. So we are going to learn the first shloka of the first chapter of the first sarga. So there are 7 kandas of chapters. Each kanda or chapter has got many sargas, and every sarga has got many shlokas. So we are going to learn the first shloka, first sarga, first kanda, which is called Balakanda. Tapaswadhyaya niratam Tapasvi Vagvidamvaram. Naradam Paripapracha. Valmiki Munipumgavam. So Valmiki Ramayana starts with actually a question, but it also starts with the word tapah. Tapah in Sanskrit literally means austerity. And a lot of our rishis have done great tapas. Normally when we think of tapas, it means somebody standing on one leg or not breathing and all of that. But literally the word means mental control. And when we exercise such level of mental control, a kind of flow, a glow, a fragrance comes into our lives. So the foundation of this Ramayana starts with the word tapas. So the scene right now is Sage Valmiki, all of his past is gone, he is now Rishi Valmiki, and he has an ashram in the forest near river Tamasa. This is the river Tamasa. Out there Rishi Valmiki has his ashram. And he's sitting there in that ashram in a pensive mode, thinking something, at which time he hears a strumming of the veena. Now in Indian spiritual literature, Naradji, who is the mind-born son of Brahma, he is often floating around into different worlds. He's got the ability to go anywhere and he has the ability to read people's mind. So Naradji is floating around. At that time, in that ashram, out there in front of Rishi Valmiki, Naradji arrives. Seeing Naradji, one Rishi meets another, very happy. And Naradji says, I can see from your face that something's bothering you. What's it? What's up? And Rishi Valmiki says, you are someone who knows both what is inside people's mind, you can read minds, there's nothing that is hidden from you because you are like the wind, you kind of flow across the many worlds, you know everything. I have been thinking of late, that is there a person in this world right now, I don't want to know somebody in the past or somebody in the future, is there somebody right now who has got divine virtues? Naradji says, okay, that's, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of good people around. What exactly do you mean by virtues or what qualities are you talking about? Now Valmiki as a rishi is very precise. He's not talking about telling me about a good person. He's got a whole list. So he says, I want to know somebody who is, and I'm going to say a few Sanskrit words, we'll translate it, who's gunavan, who's viryavan, who's dharmagnyascha, kritagnyascha. He rattles off 16 different qualities. And then he says, I want to know someone who is brave, who is a person of high integrity, who knows exactly the difference between right and wrong, who's never jealous of other people, who is well learned in the scriptures, who wishes well for everyone, who has full control over his temper, and he kind of like that 16 different qualities he rattles off, and he says, is there anyone like that in today's time that exists? Because I want to find a role model that will be beneficial not just for people today, but till the time humanity is around. So I'm very curious to know, is there somebody like this today? Now hearing that, Naradji is very happy. His heart is kind of overflowing, and he says, there is indeed. And he says, the person who has all of these 16 qualities is Sri Rama. And very briefly, in an exact summary, he covers the whole story of the Ramayana to Rishi Valmiki. So the first time Ramayana is told is by sage Narada to Valmiki. And he gives him a very brief summary of the story, and Rishi Valmiki is listening. When he finishes that whole narration and recitation, sage Valmiki's mind is now completely tranquil and he experiences a certain peace and bliss that he has not experienced before. Now normally when we say we are happy, what does that really mean? Normally our happiness is linked to what? I had pal paisam today, I am happy, good, right? Or I went and watched a match, I am happy. Or I met somebody, or I went to somebody's house, I am happy. Or I went to a certain place, I am happy. Or somebody came home or did not come home, depends which side of you, I am happy. So all of our happiness is linked to objects, to people, to situations, to places, to all of those things. So when we think of being happy, we need something. If I told you sit down for 5 minutes, then we are not happy because we have a problem being happy. But sage Valmiki experienced something in that whole, after he listened to that story, that he could almost feel himself as being one with that whole forest. He could almost feel, the whole world seemed like in a very different glow for him. Say Narada tells him the story, Valmiki is happy, Narada goes away, and he's usually a person on tour, he goes to different lokas, so he must have had his next assignment, he's left. Now sage Valmiki realizes it's the time of his morning prayers, and he usually goes for a bath in the river. So he goes with his disciple Bharadwaj, and as they are walking there to the river, he's still, he's still having that high of what sage Narada has told him. He's still reflecting on all of those qualities, what happened in Rama's life. And as he is going there, he goes to that Tamsa river and he says, "Oh my God, look at this river! It's so calm. It's almost, it's such a placid flow of right now, very calm. It's almost like the mind of a person who is, of good qualities. The mind is really calm." He does that, and at that time, there are birds waking up in the morning, chirping, and he sees two crowncha birds, one of the types of birds, who are, it's very clear from their movements that they are in love. The female is going to one branch, the male is following her, and then the female is jumping somewhere else, male is following her, and they are singing in their own way. And Valmiki almost feels like he's gotten that level of mental connection. He feels he's almost one with those birds, and he's enjoying that whole experience of how the birds are going, and the male is following, and he almost feels like he's one of them. All of a sudden, in the middle of that, and it's clear that both of them are really enjoying in that morning bliss, an arrow comes out of nowhere and shoots the male bird. Right? Film has to have some love, action, tragedy. So suddenly, the arrow comes out of nowhere. Obviously, in a moment of joy, suddenly, and that male bird falls down, no respite, and there's a hunter who has been shooting. He's out there. Normally, a rishi should not get affected by such type of instances, but that whole incident really kind of affected Rishi Valmiki, that he curses the hunter in a Sanskrit this thing, and he says, "What have you done, O wretched person? I know you are a hunter, so that's your job, but did you not see how much in love these birds were? And you have now, brought such grief to this female crowncha bird by your actions, and you will never live happily." Something to that effect, he says. And hunter goes away, and that female bird is crying. That whole image is very, very vivid in Rishi Valmiki's mind. But as he is walking back, he reflects on what he just told the hunter. And he says, surprisingly, he tells his disciple Bharadwaj, he says, "Those words are ringing in my ears. And as it turns out, they almost sound like a poem." The 4 verses that he said, they almost sound like a poem. They have a perfect meter. They are perfectly arranged. In Sanskrit, there are very clear rules as to how you can't just say stuff. One can be 8 words, the second line can be 7. No, it's a very clear meter. That's why when we sing it, it kind of flows so rhythmically, because it has both meaning but also a certain rhythm. That's unusual, because you wouldn't normally curse somebody like a song or a poem. It would just come out blurtingly. But in this case, I can feel that it has been very rhythmic. And the disciple also remembers what the rishi had said, his teacher had said, and he also feels like that. Yes, it is indeed so. As they are walking back to the ashram, mind still thinking about it, there is a divine glow. And he sees Brahma himself has come there. Now Brahma comes, and it is a very divine thing. Now at that time, whenever a rishi comes, the first thing they will do is they will offer, they will offer water, arghya, he washes the feet. And Valmiki is still disturbed, but of course he sees Brahma, and Brahma tells him, I know what is going through your mind, and I can tell you that what came out of your mouth at that time was not a coincidence. Your grief, what is called shoka, has gotten transformed into a shloka, a poem, almost a prayer. And that is because having given where your mind is right now and the state at which you are in, are being given the power, O Valmiki, to now actually write the whole story of Ramayana in the same meter that you gave this curse that this whole thing started with. So I now bless you. Then Valmiki says, how can I write the story of Rama? Because this is not something that, it's not a story. First of all, things have already happened. Rama is probably already, I don't know, 40 some years old by this time. So many things have happened in his life. Naradji gave me the exact summary. I can't just build on it. How do I know it? So sage Valmiki is then blessed that you will know everything that happened in the life of Rama and the people around him, and you will also have another blessing. Can you guess what that blessing he got?
Sita will come to your ashram.
Sita was already there, so we'll come to that. But some other blessing he got for writing this shloka. That was Mahabharata. This is the problem, no? We have got so many topics. So there is a similar boon another person got in the Mahabharata, but we'll Mahabharata after 6 months, first Ramayana. So in this he said, you will also have insight into not just what people said or events, you'll also know what they were thinking about. So as you write it, you will actually have visibility to their inner mind, to their inner emotions, what motivated them, why they were saying certain things. Now that is very important, because otherwise you can read a Sanskrit shloka, but you will see later on as we go through the story, there are some times where King Dasharatha will say something and it will read like a normal request, but the way Valmiki has actually put the words is very intentional. Why certain words were used in a certain place, but we will come to that. So he got the power to be able to understand what was going through people's mind and be able to explain it through the shlokas. One other boon he got. Now, some of you know about the Gayatri mantra. Some of you may have heard it. Some of you may also be chanting it. Now, normally mantras are not chanted loudly because mantras are almost like capsules of sound. So everything in the universe is energy. So our rishis captured certain sounds and combined them in a certain way, which has got very deep meaning but also great power. So if you do it in the wrong way, it can also, first of all, it will not be beneficial, but sometimes it can also be, it's like a recipe, right? You can't just say, I'm going to put ABC in a different order and I'll get the same dish. You may not. So you have to follow it in a certain way. So the Gayatri mantra has got 24 syllables. For example, just say the first word, tat. So ta is a syllable. So like that, there are 24 syllables in the Gayatri mantra. Ramayana has got 24,000 verses. And it is said that each 1,000 verse of the Ramayana has got one letter from the first, usually the first, but some cases may not be the first. The first, like here, tapaswadhyaya, that tapa is the ta of the tat, for example. And like that, there is a whole Gayatri mantra also built in somewhere here. So even if people do not know or cannot say it properly, just by learning and listening to Valmiki Ramayana, you get almost the benefits of the Gayatri mantra, which is a very powerful mantra. So with that boon, Brahmaji leaves him. Rishi Valmiki now, even as he's, almost like his pen is flowing without him knowing, but he can feel a very different level of clarity. As to he can see exactly the events that took place, and he starts to write the whole Valmiki Ramayana. But he said, and in a few hours he was finished. Now he thinks about who's actually going to say all this. Like I've written it, how will it go? Brahmaji also blesses him that there will not be a single word of untruth in this. And this poem will last till humanity, and your name will be famous for all of that. So with all that blessing, Brahmaji leaves. Saint Valmiki writes the whole story. And then, as it turns out, the first people after Naradji who recited the story were, like you said, Lava and Kusha, who were at that time with Valmiki, with Sita in the ashram. Now, how they got here and all flashbacks will come, so I won't get into that right now. And these two boys, charming young boys, come in there, and they are, they've got beautiful voice and they are very melodious in singing. They learn those shlokas pretty soon. Today, we struggle to learn half a page. They learn 24,000 shlokas, and it is said that they go singing those songs all the way to Ayodhya, and then they chanted to the rishis, and at that time Sri Rama was doing an Ashwamedha Yaga. he hears about it to say there are two boys who are singing melodiously a story, and Rama calls them into Ayodhya, and there he's one of the first, he's also sitting down and listening, and tears are flowing through Rama's eyes as he is listening to Lava Kusha. He of course doesn't know at that time that Lava Kusha are his own children, but we will come to all of that later. So that's how the story of Ramayana begins, with the Valmiki meeting Naraji, and then this incident of the birds and the hunter, and that shoka getting converted into a shloka, getting transformed, and then the boom from Ramayana. Okay. Now we will go straight to the story and see what happens. Okay. So this story now is starting in a province called Koshala, and Koshala has the capital called Ayodhya. Of course, Ayodhya now is very famous. Most people know recently with all the events. But Ayodhya was the capital of this province Koshala. And in the first few verses, Valmiki describes the city of Koshala. And he says this city was almost like Indra's abode, or like Vaikuntham out there. That's how the city. It had proper town planning. It had 12 entrances in proper places, wide laid roads. And he then talks about, and when we were talking about Vastu Shastra, our general impression is people then were all barbaric and everybody stone man, that's our impression. But there has been times when all of this knowledge has been used for proper planning, how the houses were delineated. There's a whole wide description in the Ramayana of how the city was structured, how it was fortified, so that Ayodhya literally means a yuddha, means a place where there cannot be war, or a place that cannot be conquered. So that place had been built, that fortress had been built in a manner that it was almost impenetrable. He then goes to describe the people of Ayodhya, right? And that's fascinating to see, the people of Ayodhya. He says people were well learned in the Vedas. Apparently it is said that there were shops selling everything in Ayodhya. The only thing you would not get is lock and key. Because people were not just rich and prosperous, but they were also content. There's no shortage of rich people these days, and the problem is contentment. So in those days, they had a combination of both. People had what they needed, but there was also a sense of contentment. So there was no jealousy, no lust. Dasharatha had 8 ministers around him who were helping him and advising him on different aspects. And Dasharatha himself was what they called a Rajarishi. Okay? Now we'll see about many more rishis later. But a Rajarishi literally means someone who has done all the tapas like a rishi and happens to be doing the work of a king. Right? Now today in our lives we say, oh no, what do I do software? I'm writing software. I'm so busy. I have no time. I work from 8 in the morning. I'm taking calls in the evening, US time zone, everything. I'm so busy that we don't have time for any other things, let alone spirituality. In those times, these people were ruling kingdoms. They were leading battles. They were winning wars. They were taking care of a whole kingdom. But fundamentally, they were rishis. So this just happened to be one of the things they did, alongside many other things. So that was the stature of King Dasharatha as a Rajarishi, who would be out there taking care. And as I said, the whole country, there was no incidence of crime in the whole place. People were living extremely happy. Now in all of that, and he also talks about, normally we measure the in economics there is a term called GDP, or gross domestic product, which effectively is broadly used as a way of how wealthy a country is or how prosperous. Valmiki uses a different equation. He uses something called as gross national happiness. He says how happy are people in a place is more important than how much you are producing economically or what level of wealth exists. So that's something he kind of uses there. And from there, as the story starts, Sage Valmiki says, one of the benefits, and you'll see the whole benefits of reading the Ramayana, one of the benefits, he says, is this story will listening to this story will help somebody achieve the goals of life. Right? And he talks about 4 goals of life. Anyone knows what are the 4 goals of life? I'm going to start with the kids first. There are 4 goals of life. That's a tough one. No? I can suddenly ask you questions on goals of life. You didn't expect you to coming here for stories and now already.
Was one of them to be successful in life?
To be successful in life.
Yes.
Sorry, what was the answer?
No, I was telling you, for him the whole goals is eating chocolate.
That's one of the goals. We'll come there. The beauty of our rishis is, they've done a brilliant job of taking multiple different things and breaking it down into simple categories for us to understand. So they say there are really just 4 types of people. Doesn't matter if you're a Hindu or a Gujarati or a Christian, doesn't matter. Humanity, broadly 4 types. We'll come to that later. But they say that anything people want can be broadly classified into 4. Right? 4 broad goals. These are also called as Purushartha. So the first one is Dharma. Okay? Correct. So the second one is Artha, we'll see the meaning. Third is Kama. Fourth is Moksha. In those times, maybe the first 3 were much more focused on, but we'll kind of look at that. Artha is something most of us will, Kama is something we'll all certainly understand. Chocolate, Netflix, TikTok. Anything that I want to enjoy, any pleasure I want to have, broadly comes under Kama. So we all kind of want to have that. Artha is literally the ability to enjoy the Kama. There's no point in having TikTok Netflix if, for example, I'm ill and I cannot even get up, right? Even all of the entertainment is not used. There's no point in having a feast. I may have a sweet tooth. I love sweets, but I've got a stomach problem. What is the point of having it? Or there may be a great party going on or a rock concert I want to go, but I've had some personal tragedy. I can't go. So Artha literally means the ability, whether it is wealth, whether it is health, all of those factors needed to be able to enjoy. So Artha and Kama is literally where 90% of our goals broadly fit in. I want a new house, new car, Tesla, next holiday, house with jacuzzi, whatever it is we want, broadly comes under Artha and Kama. But then they figured that just doing Artha Kama is not going to be helpful because that will just lead to unrighteousness eventually. So they figured that the only way you will be eligible, last time we saw that, right? Good karma, bad karma, is through the concept of dharma. So dharma was put as a way of saying, only if you do righteousness, if you do good deeds, you do your duty, will you then be eligible to earn wealth. So do it in the framework of dharma. And then the final goal with all of this is moksha, which we'll come to later. But our rishis did a great job of saying that Artha and Kama, they knew most people are not interested in dharma and moksha. Our focus is mainly Artha and Kama. But Artha and Kama, when done in the construct of dharma and moksha, can be so much more beneficial. When done without regard to our dharma and moksha, will cause a lot of the problems we see today. Right? I've got so much, but I'm still not content. I want more. I want to loot other countries. I've got 5 wives. That's not enough. I want a 7th. It just keeps going without an end. That's why they created that whole framework of dharma and moksha, in between which they kept the 2 goals of Artha and Kama. So Rishi Valmiki says, listening to the Ramayana will give us all of these 4 goals of life, and from there he starts. So now, from there on, this king Dasharatha, he had, they say, a large number of wives. I'm not going to get into the number, but a large number of wives. The ones that will interest us most will be 3 wives that we will come to. And he also had a daughter, but he did not have a son. So like many kings in those times, where it was a very much patriarchal society, he longed for a child, for a son. Because he had a daughter, but he didn't have a son. And they had tried various different things, it had not worked. Somebody suggested, why don't we do a Ashwamedha yaga? It was a very elaborate yaga which lasts almost a year. Right? Every day from dawn to dusk, they would do that yaga. And as part of that yaga, King Dasharatha asks his ministers, how should we do that? He's got a Rishi Vasishta who helps him with a lot of things. He does that. At the end of that yaga comes, they also do another, a smaller yaga called Putra Kameshti yaga, which literally means if you desire a child, you can do this. So in those days, the whole concept of Vedic rituals was, you want something, that's fine. You want a child, there's nothing wrong about it. You want wealth, great. Here is the way to do it. Go do it in the righteous way, earn it. If you want to have, if you want to go and live in a different loka, brilliant. Here are the things you need to do, you do it. So, Indian culture was not just about wealth is bad or you should not enjoy. No, you figure out what you want, but they had given very clear framework as to what do you need to do, input that will give you certain output. So the king followed that, and a divine being arose from that yaga with something. Now before we come to that being, in parallel while this yaga was going on, out there in Vaikuntha, another group was congregating. So the Devas were all kind of coming there, and they had gone to Brahmaji, and with Brahmaji they all go to Lord Vishnu to say, we are significantly under stress right now because of Ravana. So the examples Valmiki gives is saying, the sun is afraid to rise and to give too much heat because Ravana may get angry. Even wind is afraid of moving too fast because we are all under the power of Ravana. Right? Water cannot flow freely as it wants to because it is stuck in taps. No, not in taps, but whatever. Ravana had control on that. So all of what we think today, as deities, Indra, Varuna, etc., are effectively nothing but powers around us, things we can use. They said we are all literally living like we are paid servants of Ravana. Such is the control that he has over us. And that is because Brahmaji, being very generous, Brahmaji likes to give a lot of boons. So Ravana had been given a boon that you cannot be destroyed by the Devas, you cannot be destroyed by the Gandharvas. And with all of that boon, Ravana thought, why ask for protection from men? Human beings are like the least, they are almost like ants, Does anybody think they'll get killed by an ant? I don't need that. So he never asked for protection from humans or like monkeys and animals. He just wanted all these powers that he thought. Why are you pointing to your brother when I say monkey? Huh? That's not the intent, okay? So, as it went on, he said Ravana was thinking that he had been given all those boons, so now he was really living a life of licentiousness. And these devas were saying, now we have no way out, and if we continue like this, the balance of good and evil on the earth is getting tilted. Right? There will always be the two, but usually there is a balance. Right now it is heavily tilting towards evil. Please come and protect us. So Vishnu says at that time, don't worry, I will be born. Dasharatha is doing a Ashwamedha Yaga. I will be born in his house. And they say Vishnu, if you see the image of Lord Vishnu there, he's got a Shankha, Chakra, Gada. They say all of those Ayudham also were born as Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna with him. And then he also tells the Devas that when I come, I'm also going to need an army. So Vali was born, Indra was born as Vali, Surya was born as Sugriva, Vayu was born as Hanuman. So all the Devas and the Devatas were also born, they also took human or animal form to be able to kind of go there and support the Lord. So all of that arrangement was happening out there. And now from this yaga arose this divine figure, and he brings with him Paisam. Now with this Paisam, he gives, so when you have to divide anything across three people without controversy, it's always a bit tough. So he gives it to Dasharatha and he says, here, if your wives consume these Paisam, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi and Sumitra, the three wives of King Dasharatha, if they consume the Paisam, whatever problem they have been having in being able to conceive or have a baby will be gone, and in due course of time, you will have children. So as the eldest wife, he gives 50% of that Paisam to Kaushalya. He then gives 25%. So from the remaining half that is there, he splits it half, he gives 25% to Sumitra, but he doesn't give the other 25% to Kaikeyi. He gives half of that. He gives, what is half of 25?
12.5.
Good, everybody's aligned. Great. So he gives half of that 25. So 12.5 he gives to Kaikeyi. So he gives 50% to Kaushalya, she has drunk her Paisam. He gives 12.5 to Kaikeyi, she has also drunk her Paisam. Sumitra has her 25%, but she has not yet drunk it. So the remaining, what is left now? 50, 25, 12.5, what is left on the Paisam?
50.
Ooh.
12.5.
Then just 12.5 left.
Perfect. So that 12.5 he gives it to Sumitra. So how much does Sumitra have now?
37.5.
Too much. No? Ramayana, mathematics, Aryabhatta. Sorry. Okay. So Sumitra has got 37.5. Now different poets have said this differently. Like Kalidasa says this in a slightly different way. He said actually 50% was given to Kaushalya, 50% was given to Kaikeyi. Now both of them felt bad for Sumitra. So they say that both of them gave half to Sumitra. That's why she got twins. Now, whichever version works for you, you go with that. But he finally managed to divide the paisam in a way that everybody was happy and there was no fighting in the house. That's most important. So those paisam was consumed, and in due course, in a year's time, first baby born Rama, in a few days, a slightly different start, but in a matter of almost maybe days at best, the 4 children were born. Right? What were the 4 children? Who were the 4 children? Rama, Lakshmana, Bharat and Shatrugna. But the order was different. Rama, Bharata, Lakshmana, Shatrugna. Right? Rama was born to whom? Kaushalya. Bharata was born to Kaikeyi. And Lakshmana was born to Sumitra. And Shatrugna was born to? They were twins. So they were both born to Sumitra. Now they say there's an anecdote in the Ramayana where they say when these babies were born, of course, they got 4 cradles. And they put the 4 babies there in the order of their birth. So Rama, then they put Bharata, then they put Lakshmana and Shatrugna. And they say these babies were crying a lot. They were very restless. So a lot of the royal medics and priests, a lot of people came to see what is happening here. But whatever they did, didn't work. So then when sage Vasishta came there, he is the royal sage, he is the advisor for King Dasharatha. They asked, why are these babies so restless, they're not sleeping? I mean, they are not sleeping, means we cannot sleep, so please do something. So he suggested that there's some, the alignment is not correct. You just swap, put Lakshmana next to Rama and put Shatrugna next to Bharata. So now it is Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrugna, keep them that way. And then the crime reduced, they say. People are still crying but not as much. So the problem is not solved. Please do something. So just take 2 cradles out, put Rama and Lakshmana in the same cradle, put Bharata and Shatrugna in the same cradle. And when they did that, the children were overjoyed. And since then, almost always, Lakshmana has almost been a shadow of Rama, and Shatrugna and Bharata have been inseparable. So even as they were growing, while all the 4 brothers loved each other and they respected and there was deep love for them, it often happens in every family nowadays, there are not usually more than 2, but you'll see anywhere that we always have a liking for a certain cousin, like just as in friends. So even here, the 4 children grew up in a way where Rama and Lakshmana were almost inseparable, Bharata and Shatrugna also grew, but they were all kind of growing. Now they say that 12 years passed and then King Dasharatha felt like, he was almost in heaven. That's the kind of feeling he got. Because 12 years passed and these children are learning all the Vedas, they are adept in archery. And in that time, but for those 12 years that passed, Valmiki barely has 5 or 10 shlokas detailing, right? Whereas later on, when Vishnu is born, in his next avatar, what was he born as?
Krishna.
Krishna. When Krishna went from 0 to 12, there are thousands of verses written. Because by that time, Krishna had a very eventful childhood. Killing demons, lifting over them, dancing on stage. But Rama, please do this. Okay, I will do it. Rama, eat your food. I will do it. Rama, do homework. I will do it. Rama, have you got scores? 100%. So Rama was like the perfect obedient boy. But who wants to listen to such stories? We want adventure. We want some. So that's why in the next avatar when he came, he says, Krishna, don't do this. I will do it. Krishna, you should not go out alone. I will certainly do it. Krishna, you should not steal butter. How else will I eat? Even if there is butter in the house, I will go out and steal. But we will listen to Krishna's stories later. So Rama's childhood till 0 to 12 was very obedient, good boy, goody two shoes. Anybody here? Goody two shoes?
I'm a goody two shoes.
Some are? Good, so you could be like Rama. Yeah, but continue to be. Don't say, no, I all want to become like Krishna. No, you can be like Rama. Otherwise your parents will not come next time. They'll say, what is this uncle telling them all? So, all that happens, these children are growing. And at that stage, a visitor enters the court of Dasharatha. Who is that visitor? What he does? We will see next. We will just close with closing prayer, and maybe we will do those shlokas at the start very quickly. Any questions we can take? Otherwise we will continue. Yes.
Ask question now or later?
Yes, you can ask question, then we can conclude everything.
I thought Lakshmanan was Adishesha's avatar. I'm sure I heard that. No?
Correct. It is also, that's why even the star in which he is born is called Ahilya, which is linked to snakes. Yes, dear.
How come he has more than one wife?
Sorry?
Alcuin's born was one.
King.
Oh, no. So that's a good question. He had not more than one. He had, people say 250, 300 wives, etc. So there are different reasons, and the point is, in those times, people were also, especially as kings, they many times marriages were done for political reasons. So we don't have a war, we do that. But it was also a personal choice. So see, interestingly, King Dasharatha has 350 or some wives. Rama, his son, was very clear, I will only have one wife. So if you are looking for a role model, look for Rama, not Dasharatha. So, but you're right, it's a choice, but people took those choices accordingly. Any other questions? Any other points? Otherwise, we will just say the one or two verses from the start, and then we will.
Sorry, just while Valmiki was writing the Ramayana, was Rama still?
Yes. Itihasa. It was almost Rama. Obviously, Rama was much older. 30-40 years had passed. So some of this is flashback. But yes, Rama and Valmiki have actually met. Yes. So all of this is happening as the events are taking place. That's last week we said that is one of the difference between a Purana and a Itihasa. That when Mahabharata was happening, Vyasa is actually part of the Mahabharata. He is also part of the events that are taking place. Here, Valmiki is very much part of some of the events that are taking place. Yes. So yeah.
Uttarakhand, Sita used to live with.
Correct. He also lives in the ashram.
Is it possible that you check the sloka? We have something like it downloaded on our iPad or something. Is it difficult?
Not difficult. All these are online only. We have to just take it. I'll send you all a link, but because we are only picking a few slokas, I don't know, maybe next time if we have a screen or something, we can put it up, if it is possible. But if not, maybe I'll send you a link, you all can send it. Only thing is that we'll have to just find a way to get this to you all, because we don't have like a full list. So as we are building it, maybe we can send it across. So you all can refer to something else if you want. Yeah? Absolutely. We'll send it. Okay. So most of you I know are maybe part of the Stoneleigh Temple WhatsApp group, but if you are not, please you can ask Krishna here, and he can guide you with. If you join, even a certain week the class is not happening or there is any announcement, then it is best that we all follow the WhatsApp group rather than have multiple comms. That way, even if there are any like printouts or PDFs to be sent, we can send it in the temple group itself. Yeah? So, cool. So we'll chant one or two shlokas. Do you have one, or shall I just say from the ones that we said at the start?
Sure, I just thought of chanting this thing of Manisha, because that's
Okay, I've got that. So let's see the. Okay, let's chant the first shloka and then this one where when Valmiki is seeing the hunter. If I don't get it right, Uncle Shankar is going to come and tell us properly. So the first one. Tapaswadhyaya niratam. Tapaswadhyaya niratam. Tapasvi vagvidambaram. Tapasvi vagvidambaram. Naradam paripapracha. Naradam paripapracha. Valmikir munipungavam. Valmikir munipungavam. Let's say the next one. Manishada. Manishada. Pratishtam tvam. Pratishtam tvam. Agama. Agama. Shashwati samaha. Shashwati samaha. Yat krauncha. Yat krauncha. Mitunadekam. Mitunadekam. Avadhi. Avadhi. Kama mohitam. Kama mohitam. So let's say these two and we'll just close with the Purnamada. So let's say it together if you know it, otherwise just listen and slowly over time you will know. One more, take a deep breath.